Yeah, I mean, we can actually start. I was going to stretch it up to 10 minutes past, but I fully agree with you as well that we can, when they join us, then that's their morning. So we'll go straight into it. We have a few of them here. Last week, we also talked to the winners, the third place position. We were hoping we'll have the second place speaker today, but she became unavoidably absent from schoolwork. So we would do with this as we should. So today we have with us, and I'm introducing Shriyasa already. We have Shirasa today, who is teaching us a threefold topic, like I like to think about it. She's a sustainability consultant with a rich decade-long career in brand strategy and marketing. She has worked for major global fashion media houses, including Harper's Bazaar, Cosmopolitan, and also with a stint at India's largest fashion e-commerce. One of the good thing about the fashion industry is that it's one of the most um I don't want to use wasteful, but the one that needs a lot of sustainability in its in its raw material. So it's not different from the energy space because everybody wears clothes, everybody dumps clothes, everybody do with it, as they please. Some of us buy it out of luxury. So it's the same thing with energy. We do really, misuse energy, and all the ideas that you have shared so far around your ventures begins to tell us that there is a need to optimize that space. So she's speaking from a core of sustainability, and she'll be telling us in terms of the development aspect of it, how she herself, bringing her knowledge around social impact and also the markets economics that she will be sharing with us. Her journey has been marked by, creating influential social startups in sustainable fashion, cultural domains. She's extensively traveled, but she really does have indigenous skills across marketing, ESG, advocating for social impact, the intersection of climate, energy, and policy. And she's at the forefront of advocating for the global south. For the sake of knowledge, the global south is what we call emerging economies, right? And economies that are developing, and advocating for global south in developing the right dialogues and ensuring that they are part of influencing global perspective when it comes to economic growth, again, and sustainability. So much to learn from you today. So I'd like to hand over the floor to you at this point. We would have people join us, but really keen for you to teach us across the three subjects: winning new works, the macro and micro part of social of markets, understanding the dynamics of the economics of sustainable social ventures, and really what our venture participants can take out of this to make their own ideas better. So I'll see to you here. Thank you for joining us, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Dhanbosan. This is really a great space for me to be speaking. And thank you so much for having me here. More than me imparting my knowledge, I'm really excited to meet all the contestants and the winners here. And in the course of this 1.5 hours, I'm equally interested to know more about what the team is and what you guys are planning to do. And my knowledge experience in the last 10 years of what I've understood in the impact space. So I've kept my presentation a little generic for the social sector, not really very energy specific, because I think pretty much all angles of the social impact space also works for the energy sector, probably a little different from in the economics and the microeconomic market. But anybody who is looking just beyond the energy sector would also be hopefully benefiting from my experience. And a little bit about myself. Like she's already told, I've been in fashion, I've been in media, I've been in the social impact space, because after being around fashion, I've realized the aftermath that it causes. And I wanted to use my brand strategy and marketing skills into something that makes really a difference. And from there, I've kind of entered in the whole world of sustainability, and then I've done my master's. And now that I have shifted my base from India to Amsterdam, I get a completely different perspective of how the world looks at the global south. Like Tonbusan had said, that the global south are the countries who are emerging economy, and most of the countries who are emerging right now are geographically happen to fall in the south of the hemisphere, and hence they are called the global south. So yeah, I would talk about the perspectives from various sectors and how the global economy sees social capital ventures. So I would want to keep this really interactive. I would not want to take do this as a class where somebody's just imparting some knowledge, because I have been in your position and that's not really ever exciting. But please feel free to switch on your cameras, because I would like to see and interact with you. I will try not to bore you, but I have also kept my presentation a little word heavy, because I want you to take this back as your knowledge base to start working on whatever you're working right now, if that's a venture. So you would not only see pointers, but texts on my PPT, and please be assured that I'm not going to run through all the text. But it generally happens that when you have a PPT and then later when it is shared with you, you cannot make any sense if they are just pointers. So I've just, worked towards making this as a very usable format that you can use when you're starting building your venture. So should I share my screen, or is the team going to share the screen?
You can share your screen, but if you want
Okay.
us to, happy to as well.
No, no, no. I'll share the screen.
Okay.
Can you guys see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Oh,
It's coming up. Great.
We can see your screen, but you should put it into presentation mode.
yeah, yeah, I am. Yep,
Perfect. Thank you.
awesome. So the topics that I would be covering today is the social value of businesses and a holistic perspective from the social sphere, and how social ventures are really made, what are their characteristics, how do you form your USP, and what are the kind of nitty-gritties that you would keep in mind when you're building a social venture. So there are three modules that I would be covering, and after each module, we'll try to do a little bit like a short exercise by helping in the breakout rooms and discussing probably 8 minutes of your time to, put into practice whatever I'll be sharing and then getting back. So the agenda is pretty much broken up into three modules. One is meeting social needs, and then where I would talk about how what are the factors, who are the beneficiaries, why would you be launching, and how do you go about it, and then once you form your business, how do you win new work, and the third is the market analysis of really understanding what the role the market plays and how it interacts with the with your venture. So before this, I would want to know you a little bit, because I think a lot of you have now joined in. And if you could just, scan the QR code, and I want to know from where all you are joining in, because I'm from Amsterdam. So I would be just running the, just a second. Yeah. Uh, are you able to see my poll?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
But we see the PowerPoint, not the poll. So you probably want to share
Okay.
the browser for
Yes.
that.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah. So amazing. I can see three countries already. And this is so interesting.
Do you want to call out the Menti code so that we put it
Yes,
on the chat
yes.
as
The
well,
the
please?
Menti code is 767
Seven.
33123. 767 33123. This is just getting to know the team and who's logging in from where. The code is 767 33123 in a Mentimeter. Amazing. Cool. So this is my next question, and I think it's really important for me to know what is the industry that you aspire to be in, or you're coming from, or you currently work, or you're planning to transition. So the Mentimeter code is for all the people who are joining in now. The Mentimeter code is 767333123.
So we're waiting. It says the presenter hasn't changed slides yet for the second question.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's see, view results.
No, I think,
Let's see.
are you able to see the next poll?
Maybe it's a network issue for me, but it still says the presenter hasn't changed slides yet.
I see the slide. When you think of the term social venture, which organization brand comes
Right.
to your mind? Is that the correct slide?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So all of you who are logging in, I would love to know some ideas and some brands that you have in mind when you think of the word social venture. And the Mentimeter code is 767333123. Great. So we'll move ahead with the next poll. And this is an open-ended question that I wanted to keep. What in your, as per you, is a cause that's close to your heart or you think you would want to work on? I think most of the people would say access to energy, but if there's something else that as a cause that is close to your heart and you think you would be building a venture or excited to be part of, please let me know. I'd be excited to also know as well.
So what I can also add is if they can't use the Mentimeter, then they can use the chat box.
Yes, I
To
think
also engage with.
that's great as well because I just want to know the team a little better. Yes, in case you can't see the Mentimeter, please feel free to use the chat box and put in your. Okay, cool. You can keep sharing your interests and ideas about the venture that you think about. We'll quickly jump into the presentation. Great. Can you all see the presentation?
I see it, yes.
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you. So the first module is meeting social needs. Now, the module will talk about how you know who your end user is, who's your stakeholder, because your beneficiary, your stakeholder, and your end users are generally different. And what are the drivers of change, and how do you really tell a story and put your whole social value together in your social venture. Now, what I'm expecting to learn you guys to know about this module is understanding the effectiveness of the weakness that your service you're offering and the art and how good and how strongly you articulate the sense of the venture that you have. So let's understand what a social venture is. A social venture is essentially a company that is profit making but has a base of social impact on it. So there are beneficiaries apart from the customer who would benefit from your company, and it is mainly a venture that is for long term, because the profit that you reap is what you sow back in the venture to make it grow. And there is always an angle of impact which is above and beyond economic gains. So now let's understand how the social process and social entrepreneurship kind of merge. Now, any social venture would definitely have two characteristics: a social process, because it is trying to solve an idea or a problem, and hence it comes in the picture, and that the beneficiary of that process is has a social angle. So if you understand how a venture works, it would be mostly there's a root cause of a problem that I'm trying to solve, but I am not an NGO who's trying to solve the problem. I am a company that works around it, where I would solve the problem, but also ensure that there is financial sustainability to it. So the company would make profit, but the takeaway is not only profit. So when you make your company's reporting, your impact is your hero product, and your profitability and the gains are there. But what you really, as a company or as a USP of the company, would be its social cause. And now we come to some basic characteristics that a social venture would have. Now, I have taken into consideration, when I think of a social venture, these are some of the brands that come to my mind. There's Tom Shoes, there's Grameen Bank from Bangladesh, by Professor Yunus, who had won the Nobel Peace Prize. There's Patagonia, and one of the few trailblazers in the fashion industry who has a social impact venture. There's Good Weave, who does a lot of work again in the grassroots. There's Ben and Jerry's, though Ben and Jerry's is a very profit-led company. It ensures that most of the profit is again sown back to the global south, and in sectors that it really generally profits and benefits from. And of course, Ashoka, I think they are the biggest change makers to be there currently. Now, some of the characteristics of social venture are social mission, profitability, innovation solution, reinvestment, community stakeholder, and ethical standards, collaboration network. If you see the list, you definitely see that most of these have above and beyond that is profitability. And even like I was mentioning, the measurement of the social venture is impact that it's creating, and it is solving for some problem that has a social angle and that touches many lives, or the base point is multi-dimensional or multi-pronged. So it's not really solving for a commodity, it is solving for a problem which would impact other lives. Okay. So now let's understand that the main thing that a social impact venture and a normal profit venture differentiate is the beneficiary and the end user. The end user and the beneficiary are two different people, and the customer is also different. The stakeholders are different. So it's literally like a nucleus of social venture where the beneficiaries of the action that happens. So when I talk about beneficiaries, people who derive benefit from this venture, and they might not be the people who are paying for it. So they might not be the customers, and and the customers are different. Say, let's take Tom Shoes. The people who buy the shoes are us who would be buying. The beneficiaries are, once you buy a pair of shoes, the other pair of shoes goes to kids to of school who do not have pair of shoes. So the beneficiary are the kids, and the customers are us. And we have to understand this, that why are the beneficiaries so crucial? You would think that, okay, if one is not paying for the brand, why would a beneficiary be useful? The beneficiary here is useful because the business is built around the beneficiary of solving a problem, where the beneficiary stands behind as a backdrop of the venture, and there are people solving for it. So the customers who are buying the product are merely sponsors, and the beneficiaries are the real heroes, but then they have taken a back seat, and hence these social ventures are really nuanced. So when you build a business plan or a business module, your first line of market research has to be, who are these beneficiaries? Why am I trying to solve these beneficiaries? What is the real problem? So you identify these problems from the beneficiaries. So you solve for the so you target the beneficiaries as to, okay, who are these people that I'm talking about? Okay, let me make a person of the problem that I'm trying to solve about and the particular people. So when you create a brand strategy for a social venture, you have to know it by on point of whom are you actually going to solve for. Else it becomes a very vague philanthropic act where you are not really solving for a problem, because you've never thought through who is your beneficiary, who is getting the actual benefit, and the customers are not sure because you are also not being able to market or storytell who is actually benefiting from your business. And you have to do an empathy mapping while you use these while you think of a beneficiary. You have to think, okay, how does this person feel? What is the real problem on a day-to-day life? If you are trying to solve some problem for some beneficiary, when and how is he problem facing this problem? So now I come to this persona mapping, which is really very an exciting project, and I personally like it. So when you create a brand or when you create a venture, you are solving for people, and you should know who are these people. Now let's take an example that I am solving. Let's take Storm shoes. I think we all know Toms as a brand. They are an international brand that solves for they sell shoes, but the aim of them are not really selling shoes, because once you buy a pair of shoes, another pair of shoes is being gifted to a child in Africa or in the other global south regions, but through Save the Children, who help these kids who don't have shoes, help them with another pair of shoes, because that's really needed for them to grow, to play, to build a life. So now, if I was a brand who was solving for a persona, I would think, okay, who's the person that I'm solving for? So let's take here, I've created a persona. This guy is Alex. He's 10 years old. I am assuming he goes to a rural village, lives in a rural village and goes to school. And now I break down each and every problem that he might face in a day-to-day problem. And if I was selling shoes, I would see what are the pain points that he has of not having shoes. So his education is affected, his social inclusion is affected, there are health risks. So I kind of know and come to understand that, okay, if I'm solving from one problem, I'm actually taking a lot of other boxes that would help him to go ahead in life and, solve for. So while my venture eventually wants to solve for a problem, I'm not going to market that saying that, hey, people have no shoes to wear, and the whole sob story that most of the brands do. So if you are a social venture, you would think, okay, how differently can I tell the story? For that, I have to know the persona. So as brands, we create personas saying that, okay, who is my beneficiary? So this is one example that I took. Now let's understand the end user journey mapping. So when this product and the beneficiary kind of merges, how do I understand if it is solving for the problem or not? In the first stage is identify the stage, recognize what is the initial I'm sorry, I think people are still coming in. Yeah. So identify the stages. Then you kind of understand what are the key points that needs to be touched upon that is affecting his life. What are the interaction that the beneficiary really needs on an everyday basis to solve for this? And then once you've identified the pain point, you kind of find out what challenges he has and how can you solve for it. Say if I am wanting to solve for a kid who's 10 years old in Africa or in India who does not have shoes, I should really know, is not having a shoe a problem, or the outcome or the effect or the pain points that he has because of not having the shoe important. So for me, when I would be storytelling for the beneficiary, I cannot really tell a story that says that, hey, people don't have shoes, because that's not really the problem. The problem is what really happens when beneficiaries do not have shoes, because they would have health issues, they are not included, they cannot travel, and other issues. So you should know exactly the pain point that you are solving for the beneficiary. It's not always only the customer. And then you collect data, you use local NGOs, you use survey forms, you gather beneficiary insights by market survey, by going there. So while you are also like you will come to see in the next presentations, while you're also creating a similar customer persona, you are definitely first creating who you're solving for and what you're solving for, because this information is really useful for you to market, build, and create strategies and innovation for your social venture. Now, next is, I think, the foremost important, and I think most brand schools, as a brand strategist, you would be first asked, who are your stakeholders? Of course, your stakeholders include customers, but stakeholders is almost like a cloud that you do not know of people or of bodies who are directly or indirectly getting the value proposition of your company or of your venture. They are somewhere related or are affected by your venture existing or not existing. So a stakeholder might be, say, if I am a company that builds on agroforestry or an energy inclusion, my stakeholders are actually people or tribes who are there and for whom I am solving for, but they are not essentially in my plan or in my mind when I'm making a plan. Because when you're making an energy plan, you would be going to the government, you'd be going to the local NGO, you would be solving for investors, you'll be getting in suppliers. But in the map of the stakeholder, you would always know that there are people, there are bodies of or organizations who are lurking behind are and actually most of the time benefit or impact negatively, because if your venture is not thought through. So let's take an example of countries building roads. When a road project happens, you would see that the stakeholders who are taken into consideration are always the local people who have cars, and the government and the policies and the economic development that we think about, but we never think of the bridges that will be built on the local areas of people who have to move, whose houses are going, and they are the most affected but the least stakeholders that are taken into consideration. Hence, your social venture has to take into consideration first who are your stakeholders. You might eventually know that these people are getting impacted, but at the first thought of them, they would not come in mind. And you have to see that some stakeholders are important, and there's a hierarchy of how these stakeholders play a part in making your venture success. Now, you need to know who are your critical stakeholders, because they are going to help your company be formed. They are going to grow your company. They are going to push your company forward. And you should also know who are the stakeholders who might be affected negatively. So a stakeholder interest has to be thought through very clearly for, yeah, I think people are just coming in. Yeah. And so the stakeholder interest has to be thought through very clearly, because you need to know whom you're solving for and who's going to be impacted. So how do you prioritize stakeholder people who are important? I will show you the map in the next slide. There's a map that you create of, okay, this stakeholder, say if it's a government body, the government body has high stakes and low impact on your business, but you need to follow the policy, so you have to have government in your side. But you see, say general people, they might be a stakeholder who might be affected because of your business, but they don't have really much to say or contribute, so they are there. So now, how do you prioritize this? Once you prioritize the stakeholder, you have to build strong connections and contacts and make them your critical partners, because you know they are the drivers for change, they are the drivers for your business. And try to align your important stakeholders to your business, because you know that they would be often the pain points if you don't address them at first. So you need to create good connections. You need to ensure that your story is solving even for them, even though they are not really solving for them. So you have to basically have great relationship with your high stakeholders, because you know that those stakeholders are the drivers of your business. Now, this is people who have studied policy, people who have studied brand. It's an intersection of policy, economics, and advertising is stakeholder mapping. You have to, when you're launching a business venture, you have to first know, like you have to know your beneficiary, you have to know who are the players in the business. And when I say players in the business, it is not your competitor. Who has the highest stake, who has the lowest influence, and this is going to help you create a strategy as to how to market your brand well, how to create a social venture where it is inclusive, where you are giving priority to the stakeholder that needs priority, and you know whom to handle with care. So when you create your venture, you have to make this, like, I think every brand, every company makes this map, because this is one of the key metrics to understand who's going to play a part in your business. So this map, there are various formats of a stakeholder analysis. This is the easiest that I got, and I think this makes most sense when you're starting out your venture. So on the x-axis you have interest, and on the y-axis you have influence. You will often see that most of your stakeholders would fall in either of the four. Either they are high influence, high interest, like your investors, your regulatory bodies, or you would have high influence, low interest, like government agencies and media. They have a high influence, so you know whom to handle with care. They have low influence but high interest. Mostly they are the beneficiaries, because they do not play a part intrinsically, but you are solving for them, and they generally don't have enough power to bring in a change by themselves, hence you are solving for them. And then you will have low influence, low interest. And this map is so important, because you should know that your venture is not only a brand, it is almost like a political party. And social ventures especially have to keep in mind that your stakeholders are going to make and break your company. So when you know that, say, if you are a social venture company that is into energy, you know that you need to keep the government and the policies in mind, and the person who is particularly probably giving out the grants to the policy. So he has a high influence and he has a high stake. But then if you're an energy company, a B2C customer might not be your important stakeholder. So you know whom to address and whom not to not. Now, this is an important topic, but I think it's very intuitive as well. You know who are the drivers of change. So the drivers of change are basically any factor that are not directly aligned with your company, but you know that if there is a tectonic shift in that industry or that zone, it will be directly affecting your company. So there might be technological advancements, data, digital transformation. You would see the company generally benefits it. If there are social factors, if the cultural trend shifts, if you see the education and awareness is more, you would see your social venture has more eyeballs and has more positive feedback. And I think economic and political factors are the most drivers for change for most social ventures, because policy decides your plan. If you do not generally have a policy that is solving for your business, it becomes tough to even play in the market. So if government is giving you subsidies to create renewable energy or solar plants, you would use that policy to build in your business. And if you see if the government has no policy or a rebate or any sort of instruments that help you grow your company, you would know that those factors, when they come in, they are going to drive for change. And when I say change, it can be for the negative and the positive. And of course, there are economic factors. There are always economic policies. There are market trends that you need to, I think that every company needs to look out for. This is important when you start building a venture, when you even think of, okay, I'm going to start my venture. What is it that I'm solving for? Am I solving for a new problem? Am I solving for an old problem? Am I just enabling the problem because the solution and the problem already exists? Or am I finding innovation to the solution? Or am I even finding a new problem? So this is the metrics that you kind of know when you're pitching. Say you have an elevator pitch, and so an elevator pitch is literally a 60-second pitch that you can give about your company in an elevator. So you start up with, okay, I am a matching company, or I am a capacity building company that helps that helps companies bring together to solve for a problem. So if you are an NGO, say, and you are building your venture, you would say, okay, I am a capacity building company because I know whom to solve for, I know what I am solving for. So you are basically a matching industry. If you are if you're disruptive venture, when I say disruptive, like the innovation is so new that the rest of the players in the industry would generally be toppled. So say I did see a venture that used salt water to light up houses because there was no electricity. So just think of all the electricity companies and all the electrical companies who are selling bulbs and lights because of electricity. And here a company that comes in uses the salt water to charge houses and homes is so disruptive that most of the brands are now even like they don't know who to compete with, and hence brands like these are called disruptive. So this map, if you keep in mind that what you're solving for and where you stand, it kind of helps you to build up your own pitch. Okay, now value proposition. I think this really helps when you are extending help from ventures, because they would really grill you down of what is your value proposition. Because generally what happens, social ventures just think of philanthropy, and I don't think philanthropy runs businesses. Because if you have to do philanthropy, you better not build a business, you can just do philanthropy. So your value proposition has to be so strong, and it has to be generally answering these four elements. And you can keep on extending it, but these are the basic four questions that will solve for: who's the customer, what are you solving from them, why will they choose to buy from you, and you have to prove it. So this is for the customer that you're solving, not really the beneficiary. So what's in for them could have the beneficiary story that, once, say for Tom's shoes, if you buy a pair of shoes, you would also help another kid in Africa or India get a pair of shoes. But these four factors have to be grilled down in your company when you really create. Because when you say, if today, if you think that I'm going to create a social venture, your first thing that you're supposed to write down is what is your value proposition. Because if your value proposition is not strong, and you can come back to it 100 times. I have been in brands and startups where it took almost a year for companies to build their value proposition. Because once you create a value proposition, you're going to build your mission, vision, everything around it. So ensure that you are nitty-gritty answering all these factors, that how can you prove that you're solving the problem, why would anybody want to buy from you, and what's in for them, why not a different competitor, and what are you solving for as a customer. So let's take an example, like I was saying, an elevator pitch of 60 seconds. And let's see what is your value proposition. If your headline says that what is your primary benefit that the customer is getting, what is the sub headline, how the customer is benefiting, and then you add a visual element to it, and that's your value proposition. Say here, there is let's take an example of an energy company that is solving for people. Okay, I think. Okay, so let's take an example for a company that solves for solar energy systems. So their headline is empowering communities through renewable energy solutions. This is essentially what it does. So when you think about your value proposition, what are you solving for is what needs to be told first. And then your sub headline comes: a solar energy system provides affordable, sustainable power to undeserved communities, reducing energy costs, promoting environmental stewardship. Now, why is it solving and who's the beneficiary of your business comes in your sub headline. And then you add a visual element to it, and then you see your value proposition is formed. Because this is going to be your elevator pitch. This is every time you forget what this company is trying to aim for. Because as you grow your venture, it is very easy to get diluted. It is very easy to forget what you are actually solving for. And then because once you know your value proposition, you would know whom your partners would be. You would know all the time what your company is really standing for. And it is very normal for social ventures to become excited in a way that they are trying to solve for everything, and you can't really solve for everything. So this is like a bible where you have to come back and always look at it, that okay, this is the problem, this is who is getting benefited from, and that's about it for us, at least till you kind of grow in a space that you want to branch again. So now we are almost at the end of this module. Storytelling. So this is one of the most favorite topics that I love to talk about. Storytelling is almost the building block of a social venture. Storytelling does not mean they have to be blogs or writings. It's the tonality of a social venture that uses various elements. Some could be just communicating that you're changing the world. Some visual communication could be who are the beneficiaries. Some visual communication could be who is impacting for it. But everything that a company puts out in the market or puts out internally has to carry a synergy in storytelling. So it is so effective that it has the power to, change your company. You have the power through storytelling to allow your company to grow. So storytelling is literally the building block of your company. Even if you write a one liner flyer, your company or your venture should have a synonymous storytelling, where it talks about what it is solving for, who is benefiting it, through visuals, through words, through targeted audiences. So social impact storytelling definitely stands very differently from a product storytelling, because the impact that you're creating has to be worded so well, has to be visually shown so well that it cannot look philanthropic. But this, that a social impact storytelling needs to have some heavyweight that people are buying for it. So that probably an NGO storytelling and your venture storytelling has to stand differently. And how would it stand differently? It would not go and talk about just the problem. It would talk about a holistic problem of what is the impact, how are we solving, who's getting empowered, and how are we connecting. So what generally a storytelling does, it brings the bigger picture of why you are solving for. It celebrates the good of the good that you're doing, that the good that needs to be done, and the fact that your venture is part of that goodness. And your brand value or brand perception completely changes if your storytelling is good. If your storytelling is fragmented, people who want to even follow your company wouldn't know what you're really talking about. So, and it brings people together. There are companies that are formed. If you see Patagonia, they are generally selling jackets, but they would never, I have never seen an ad that talks about, buy this jacket. They're always talking about recyclability, circularity, the people that who are benefiting from the company. Their storytelling has an impact that is just beyond the product that you're actually selling. And if you have a strong storytelling, most of the companies don't even sell their product. Their product is the byproduct of the goodness that they create. And that's how you should want to market your brand. That I would not talk about the product, but because I'm part of it, I will not talk about the product, but because I'm part of it, you would just want to buy the product. So if you want to change lives of kids who don't have shoes, instead of you donating it to A, B company, why don't you also get a great pair of shoes for yourself? And the byproduct of that is the kid who does not have a pair of shoes would also have. So when you think of Toms, you don't think of, oh wow, they have great, amazing shoes. You would always think of, oh great, I mean, I would have shoes and so would somebody else, and a kid would have a shoe. So I think that is the power of storytelling that you would want to create. So this is the end of the first module, and I would want you to be a little participative, and I would want to see how many people have joined, and if I could create a breakout room for everybody and do a quick 5-minute session with all of you.
So how many breakout
I
rooms
think
do you want?
how many people are there? I think we could create 3 breakout rooms, because the exercise is pretty easy. I would give around 8 minutes. I think craft a benefit, think of a brand, and then think of who your beneficiary is, and mention who are the 4 stakeholders minus the beneficiary, and mention 2 aspects that could be drivers of change for your brand. So say if it was storms, the beneficiary are the kids, the stakeholders of your brands are the customers and the investors probably, and the drivers of change would be the cotton market, because the moment the cotton prices increases, the value of your shoe increases. Or if you see the moment the policies in the policies in global south changes, you see that people are not really wanting to buy this brand, because there are already more socially driven policies that are there in the country, that you really don't need to buy a shoe to make a change. So just take, you don't have to dig deep, but just take probably 8 minutes to do this exercise. And I want to hear from either of the groups.
Okay, I have 3 breakout rooms created. It'll be approximately 5 participants per room. So I'm going to create it
Amazing.
now. And then I'm going to open all the rooms now. All right, is that okay?
Yes, yes, great.
So please click to join the breakout room, and Shirana would move across the room to explain the context of this. So I'm looking at the group and doing a bit of distribution. I'm moving people. I think we may need 2 rooms, and not quite. So yeah, just doing that now. 3. So we have 2 active rooms, the room 1 and the room, yeah, and the room 1, I think, and room 3. Yeah, that's it.
That's what I see as well.
Yeah.
Okay, Timboson, just a quick comment about next week. HQ is completely closed, so there will be no AAPG staff to help facilitate. The July 4th is a federal holiday here. It's our Independence Day.
I'm thinking about it, and yeah, because we don't. No, I understand the constraints, but it's how we can work around it that I'm thinking about. If Do you say we use our own platform to send you send the invitation out, and then we use our own MS Teams?
Okay, yeah, and then we can pick up on the 11th as.
Yeah, you can pick up on the 11th. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a
Oh,
good solution.
okay. All
Just
right.
let me know, who, how it goes and whatnot.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah.
Hey Heather, I have a question. How many people have joined in? Because while I was, talking, there were too many people who were waiting for admission. So,
Yeah, they
So
were popping in and out. We had several people that were joining, dropping out, and coming back. I had a total of 10 attendees online, pretty steady. We
okay.
have 6 people that are basically what you consider staff. Well, I'm using air quotes, which would be Tim Boson, Ann Grace, yourself, myself, and Elvira, who is the co-chair for the committee. So,
Okay, okay.
what we can also do is, instead of having the breakout room, is to have the conversation out here.
Correct. Because I thought there
And
were
bring
there was around 20 people, so I thought the breakout room would make sense. But I think for the next 2 sessions, I wouldn't do the breakout room. I think we could just take something and just discuss.
Yeah. And also for time, we'll take 20 minutes, then we'll have the next activity, then another 15, then we'll have the next activity, so that we can really save
Yes,
time.
I think this was the longest of the module. The next 2 are just a little intuitive. So
okay, well, I have it timed to bring them back in about 4 minutes. Is that what you have to bring them back at 10:03?
yeah,
No,
I
she's
think
saying we can bring them back now.
yeah, we could bring them back in 2 minutes more.
Okay, I'm gonna broadcast a message. I am going to bring them back.
Yes, yes.
They should be rejoining within the next 60 seconds. I believe everyone should be back now.
Yes. Great. I'm guessing all of you are back to the main room.
I'll say so, because it really takes about 1 minute lag time. And,
Okay.
yeah, let's.
Anybody from any of the rooms would want to share what they've thought about? It's not an examination, so nobody's judging. Just wanted to know if you guys understood how this works, like how the beneficiary and the stakeholder engagement really works. Hey,
All
Tosin.
right. Yeah. Thank you for that one, for the wonderful presentation. It really speaks so much to my idea. I'm speaking from breakout from session one, and the value proposition for my social venture is to ensure energy security and alleviate hazard in smart city through geophysical research assessment. So I consider the beneficiary of my social venture to be the communities in the area where the venture is to be carried out. And for such a kind of venture, I consider that the stakeholder is first the government, because it's not the community that I'm solving the problem for first. If the problem is being solved for the government first, so the community will benefit from it after the government embrace what I'm bringing through the social venture, and indirectly the community will benefit from it. So I consider first the government as the first stakeholder, then the smart city developers, people that will be involved in the development of the smart cities. I also consider investors in geothermal energy for the city as part of the stakeholder, and I also consider the national environment and energy response agencies. These are people that will be the stakeholder for this social venture. And the driver for this social venture, I consider one technological factor is one, in the sense that the government and the nation must be ready to embrace digital transformation. And the second thing I consider as a driver is also political drivers, so that there must be policies that will support geothermal energy development and also geohazard management and mitigation within the city.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm so glad you got it. Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of other stakeholders could also be part of it. But when the fact that you mentioned that the government is the biggest stakeholder because you are also solving for the government. So government is
Yes.
also in a way your client and your stakeholder and your customer because you're solving for the government. But in case if you want to get some subsidies, government also becomes your sponsor. So it's a very nuanced, yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for doing it. Anybody else would want to share?
Thank you for the wonderful presentation.
Okay, great. So we will go to the second module, and the second module is not so intensive as the first. The first really had to bring in the picture of how you would form your venture and what all you keep in mind. I think I am already sharing the screen. Okay, so great. So I'll start with the second because we are running short of time and I would just hurry through. But most of the winning new work is a little intuitive because if you have a company, you know how you would solve for it. But sometimes you kind of don't understand how to reach out to your non-direct customers and non-direct sellers, and that becomes a problem because most of the solutions that you're solving for are and the beneficiaries, some of the beneficiaries and the stakeholders are public sector and large institutions, and working with them and around them is a little difficult. So this module would generally talk about how you win new work. So there are direct and non-direct users of your brand. And the first is if you have a direct consumer, it's pretty easy. It's mostly B2C. You know who your consumer is. You have access to your consumer. You have the budgets for it. You know that the upfront cost and the extensive product knowledge that you have about the customer is going to help. You are ready with your product. And you can reach out these customers through in-person meetings, phone calls, online interaction. But the real game kind of changes in your social venture when your non-direct users are bigger organizations. And mostly these are civic bodies or government organizations or more nuanced organization that they have who have a lot of other internal stakeholders who are taking the decision. And you need to know the difference between these two because the direct users are easier to get hold of, but you are also not solving to this direct user on a large basis. But if you get a non-direct user, you are solving and you are catching a whole lot of other eyeballs for whom you would solve, and coming to the picture of the bigger picture is a little easier in case you get through them. So the upfront cost is low because the customer acquisition is literally your networking probably, and making your audience and making your marketing better, tailoring your communication. But the upfront cost is low, but the energy that you have to put in getting these RFPs or in getting these businesses through the non-direct users is really tough because you have to partner. Some examples are partnering with the distributors, resellers, online marketplaces. So these are very nuanced. You might want to come with on a marketplace, but you don't know who is really driving the market, or the profit margins are a little murky because in case you get a say RFP from the government organization to build your own solar power here, what are you going to like? How are you going to break your profit? Is the government going to take some portion of your profit? So the dependency of the profit and the role that it plays is a little complicated. So you need to look out and treat your non-direct users very differently. So the challenges are mostly a very complex decision process, longer sales cycles because you have to keep following up. Your RFPs would take time. If you give a proposal, the turnaround time of the proposal might be 6 months to a year because everybody's putting in their bit. The regulatory compliance is huge, and for social ventures to start up, this becomes majorly the pain point because to run say if you want some government venture to go about and you want to participate in it, the regulatory compliance becomes the base of why you even want to enter that. So that becomes a cost and time effective. It needs a lot of data, so that takes time. And the strategies for selling is no there is no real secret for it because it's mostly hit and miss, considering it's a very complex process. And more when there are larger bodies, say there's a public private partnership happening or there's a public company that's trying to help you out with your venture, you need to do a lot of research and preparation about the company, what that company stands for, because you need to merge your solutions with the problem that they have. And these companies generally you would see they would have one person who's leading this project but does not really have an idea of what's happening. So say the energy industry minister has a budget that needs to go out to ensure that more renewable energy options are given, are built, but he has no clue how to go about it, and you have the idea but you need the money. So you have to convince this minister or whoever is holding this budget that you are solving for him, you are solving to a bigger customer. You would be basically taking away all his pains if you give him this business. Vis-a-vis for a customer, if you just had a B2C customer and if you would be selling solar lights, you know how the customer would behave. But here you don't know. There are a lot of nuance nitty-gritties inside. So you need to do a lot of other preparation, because it's almost like if the person says no to A, to concept A, you should be ready with concept B, because you know that, okay, he might not be okay with the way I'm trying to build my brand because he foresees that I'm going to make money. So he's going to, turn down your proposal. So you need to tell him that, no, I'm also solving for something else. So the preparation and research is really important. And I think the core of getting bigger proposals, the core of working with bigger parties and bigger users and indirect users is always relationship building. I think this has to be done, especially for projects that are of bigger scale, because the relationship is that one network, that one thin thread that decides whether you're going to get the proposal or not. And at least in my experience, I've realized most of the decisions do not happen because you are capable. Most of the decisions happen because you've networked better. So the better relationship you keep with the person who has the project or is the right person to deal with, I think your social venture gets more exposure. Of course, tailoring communication, like I said, if plan A does not work, plan B, be very specific on what you're solving for. You should know your target audience, because here your government is your target audience. And can you imagine that if you need that grant to work on your solar power, for you should be really solving for a lot of things and keep tailoring your communication, because you know that probably on day one you wouldn't be getting it, because there might be 10, 20 companies solving the same problem. So you need to stand out in a way and this you would only understand by getting feedback again and again, by knowing the person again and again, by knowing the key driver of the project. Yeah, I mean, tailoring your offer, I think it's pretty understandable that the customer needs have to be understood. Adapt your product or service feature to meet the uniqueness of your product. So go to the customer, present your USP. In case you see that your USP is not really working for for the person you are selling to, be very flexible. Say if you're selling for say if you're selling for a solar plant, and you know that if I say that I'm putting on solar plants, the person says, yeah, there are 25 more companies that have come to me. So you also need to offer that while I'm solving for the solar plant, one of my projects would also be empowering women in all the villages that are where I would be putting the plant, because maintenance often becomes the loose string of these solar projects. So how you would maintain, what is the circular economy that you can run, the take back offers that you can run once these solar panels are not working. So you have to solve for some extra and keep yourself open. I'm not saying change your business value proposition, but don't be like, hey, this is what we do, this is it. In case you want to get that bigger opportunity, play in your space, see what else you could offer, because I think it's very intuitive that not just great ideas don't really work. Sometimes it's that extra zing that your company has, that is the reason why you get that project. Yes, and market your value proposition. Like I said, keep changing, keep working, and keep narrowing your market proposition, because if you play to the niche, there is hardly any chance that there might be a competitor. There are other ways of building your credibility. Your compliance of the company needs to be really solid. Even if you do not have the budget to work on the compliance, at least work on the basic principles of the compliance, so that tomorrow when you have the budget to budget for the compliance-led activity, you don't have to restart from scratch. Like let's take an example for B Corp that's in Europe. even if you, because B Corp certification is really costly and takes a lot of time and data and people, manpower, at least have the basic principles when you start a brand, that I'm going to build my business on the principles of B Corp, so that tomorrow when I have the budget and the manpower to get a certification, I do not have to completely tweak my business. And trust and credibility is, of course, a major factor in the social venture space, because this is not a product that you can just do. You are not just selling a shoe, or you are not just selling a soap. You are selling an idea. And the more transparent you are, the more reliable you are, the more uh, clean you are as a company, that does not greenwash, that does not make claims that they are really not doing, helps to build the brand credibility. And so for that, you need to robust your marketing, you need to work on the case studies that you have worked in, you need to create industry certifications. And the what really sometimes happen is, as a brand person, I've seen the communication is not consistent. One day you are talking about energy, the next day you're talking about the village that you're working on and how they are happy people because of the solar plant. For an investor, he's not really sure if he's investing on a solar plant that really generates electricity is your product, or happy people at the end of the project is the product. So the consistent communication can only come if your value proposition is very solid. Of course, the effective sales is only possible when you're following up with the client, your communication is tailored, your key sales of the elements are very clean, like your profit margins are sorted, your discounts are sorted, your sales pitches are sorted. And of course, I think the last driver to change within the sales is the engagement with the client, because most of the times these social ventures lose out on bigger budgets is because they've not created a relationship with the company that is sponsoring the project, and also because they are not updating the client of what they are doing. And most of the clients actually get sold out because it's just the person probably who's doing the project. So the engagement with the client, your sponsor, your stakeholder who has the highest power, has to always be thick, as much as thick as your investor probably. So yeah, I would not be breaking out rooms now, because I think we don't have a lot of time. Uh, would anyone want to talk about a brand of your choice that you are considering as a social venture, and what is the pitch you would give to the brand? Say if you are pitching for a brand that you have a social venture, what are the 5 pointers you will talk about in the public sector? And how you would, like, if you had to sell something to me and if I'm a public sector official, would anybody want to partake in this exercise? There are no points for not doing, but it would be fun to know. It could be any venture that you talk about. Any trailblazers in the team? Because it would be fun to know what you're even thinking, and it gives me a little perspective of if you're getting this or not, or if you have any questions. If not this exercise, is there any question that you guys have regarding this module?
So let me help you here by calling out the names. MD, Tosin, Daniela, any thoughts around if you want to describe your venture and highlighting the value proposition, what would you say? And she's even giving us, guidance. 5 points. Imagine that the 5 points are like 5 words. Describe your
Exactly.
brand using 5 phrases.
There's no examination, so even if you're wrong or not prepared, it's okay.
We're waiting. It doesn't appear anyone is ready to take this. Maybe we'll just go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. So now we are clocking in the third module and the last module, which is the most interesting module for me because I have worked in this space of creating customer persona the most. And this is the module that is really going to, I'm not able to move ahead. Okay. Yes. So the third module is going to be a great driver for the overall business of any. It can be a social venture, it could be just a startup, but the macro and the microeconomic development decides the company's growth. And some of it is in your hands, some of it is so macro in a level that you just have to comply with it. So, and also to understand this, you need to battle a competitor analysis. And I think the core of any business and any venture that you're going to go for investments, the first question always comes in, apart from your value proposition, is who's your competitor? What is your market analysis? Why should I put money on your business and not? So when you answer this question, that if you have to, it's almost like a war. You have to know your enemy so well that you know the next move. You don't have to know the next move of your enemy, but you need to know that what this market is playing. So this module pretty much carries this. Why do you need a market analysis? A market analysis is really needed to know why your business should exist in the first place. So there are dynamics to understand the market dynamics, like why does the consumer need my product? Am I solving for a problem? Who are the threats and the opportunities? What are the gaps that I'm trying to fill with my project or with my product or my idea? Why do I have a competitive advantage, and what are the differentiators my brand has? How do I make informed decisions? I will only make an informed decision when I know my market, when I can plan what my market holds for me. And say if I know that I right now, if I'm launching a project and I already have the technological capacity to include AI, why would I why would I hire people who are mapping and trending? Because AI is solving for that problem. So it is really important to know the externalities of the market and also your complementary market that's coming in. And of course, this helps to understand the risk. If you know now, if we know the market that most of the companies are solving for climate, and you create a product that is so that gets affected by climate so much, then your whole plan kind of fails. So if you are making a say solar rooftop business, and you don't quote your solar panels well because you know that there's going to be harsh climatic temperatures, that's your risk, like that's your asset just going waste. So now let's see how a competitor analysis works. So there are 4 types of competitors. You have direct competitors who are your direct, like A and B in a space. You have indirect competitors, like they are not really your competitors because they are your complementary competitors. It might affect, say, if I am a tea maker and the prices of sugar have increased, you would see that the tea market gets affected. So even though it is not my competitor, or coffee is not my competitor, because the price of coffee has decreased, hence people are not drinking tea anymore. So these are indirect competitors. There are emerging competitors, of course, because you don't know that there is innovation every day. So you need to have that leeway in your brand or your venture that, okay, even if there are emerging markets, I will not become redundant. And of course, there are legacy competitors. They are such big conglomerates probably who are doing this work that they will always become a competitor, even though their budgets are probably 100 times more than you. Now, conducting analysis, this world of conducting analysis is a little over the top, because nowadays every other 30 there is a new analysis that comes. But the basic has always been a SWOT analysis. When you you have to do, it's almost like a litmus test for your brand. When you work on what is my strength of my company, what is the weakness of my company, you automatically know the health of your company, or why you would be solving for A and not B. So there are various formulas that are here. One is strength, weakness, opportunities, threat. Nowadays people don't really do this because they believe this, that the strength, opportunities, aspiration, results are a little more aligned to the new market. But then there is the Porter's 5 analysis and noise. I've just given the names. You could do it yourself. And I think this is a great exercise to start with. If I had, as a brand and marketing manager, the first 3 things I always do is, please do a SWOT test, please make your persona, and please know your target audience. These 3 kind of solves for most, at least 60% of the problem that your brand is stuck in case you don't know how to go ahead with. So taken an example here, the strength of the company, say if you're an energy company, the strength of your company is renewable energy. So that's your strength. The weakness is the coal energy is still lesser priced than the solar probably. So that's a weakness. The opportunities are that the government is investing a lot in renewable energy. So you would bank on that wave. And the threat is probably a cheaper material that probably somewhere else in the world is being made, and the material that you are paying for might become redundant. So things like, if you do these litmus tests and use probably all of them, you would see you are solving for basic, like, various other problems. Like the Porter has externalities like customer bargaining power, threats of substitutes. So essentially it is an examination for your brand, and I think this is definitely something that needs to be done every 6 months for any venture that's coming up. Now there are 2 major drivers or players in your business always, and I think this is a generic information for any business. There are microeconomic factors and macroeconomic factors, so which your brand is very susceptible to, especially when you're a social venture, when you are not apparently solving for a problem, when your impact is much more long term. Say it takes 5 years to show your progress, and if you make money after probably 10 years. So these macroeconomic factors can be against you, or you can ride the wave of these. So, some of them are the global trends. Some of them are geopolitical events like trade wars. Say the war that's happening between Russia and Ukraine had increased oil prices. So that was a major macroeconomic factor for most companies. And of course, there are many other, like there's economic growth, there's inflation, interest rate, government policies, you could read them. And these factors actually affect your business to a point that you can't really risk for them. You can create risk analysis for them and keep assessment ready, but you don't really have a hand in these. Because if the interest rate of your say tractors increases, you can't really say, okay, I'm not paying for it. So you need to know that you need to ride this wave or flow against this wave and be ready for it. There are microeconomic factors that are more in your hand, but also the change could be catastrophic or great. So the delta change of your company because of microeconomic factors is very sticky. So say a consumer behavior is a very microeconomic, because one consumer can actually change behaviors and one demand can create many demands. So you have control on the consumer, and the consumer would decide literally whether they want to purchase your brand or not. So your aim is to always keep your consumer happy. And these microeconomic factors that are in your hand that you could work around. You could work on your price strategy, you could work on your cost structure, you could also work on the market demands, like income. If the income levels have increased for people and they have more disposable income, you create a product or a venture or an idea that helps to solve for that extra income that the person has. If you see that there are seasonal variations happening in your project, say if you are a agro-tech company and you wouldn't want to sell summer products on winter, so you have these microeconomic factors that are very sticky and that are in your control that you could always play to your strength. Now, I think this is the holy Bible of everything, your USP of your venture. USP, all of you know, it's a unique selling proposition. It is very similar to your value proposition, but essentially what makes you stand out, what differentiates you, why should the customer be buying your product, and USP decides your strategic focus. If you are a company that is solving for something that's so niche and unique, you don't really have to think about your other competitors because you are in a niche space. So let's take for Tom's shoes, every pair you purchase, Tom's will give up new pair of shoes to one child. And that is so unique that you don't now really need to do a lot of work on the engineering of shoes, because nobody buys Tom's because they want to probably ace the engineering of shoe. A person who's conscientious generally would buy Tom's because of its USP. Now, how do you create a USP? You understand your customer, what you're solving for, and I think that is very essential. What you're solving for has to be always in your mind. Root your business value, align with your mission and vision, because your authenticity is the only thing that brings the USP. You cannot, even if you are playing in a very generic market, say if I am selling soaps and my USP is I am the only charcoal soap, at least when you know your USP, that is so important for you to even play in a market. So let's take for an example that if everybody sells shoes, why would Tom's be differentiated from the other? Because shoe is not their focus. You know, the way they market is that buying a Tom's means it shows the customer that that customer is conscientious, and they always align their marketing even on that. So you should know why your brand is so authentic. Of course, there are unique identifiers. You might use innovative technology, you have sustainable practices, how you differentiate from your competitors. Either there are physical differentiations, or you have to create a differentiator from your market, and that's sometimes very important. And that is when you know what you are really solving for, who's your beneficiary, what is the gap that you're solving for. If you just have a product or a proposal that solves very generic situations, unless you don't know the niche, it becomes tough for your brand to even grow. Because if you're saying, okay, I'm solving for hunger, that cannot be a proposal. There are 1000 companies who are solving for hunger. You have to drill yourself down that I am solving for hunger for women who are mensurating, and because they do not have an access to clean food and water, this is what my venture would help in: accessibility to water for kids, for teenage women. So always try to keep your social venture generic yet having a USP, because that is going to be your focus driving factor. And of course, craft a statement, keep it simple, keep it consistent. But like I did mention, the power of storytelling can literally make and break your company. So yeah, that's the end of the all the three modules. I would love to do this exercise with you, that do a SWOT analysis of your company and tell me 2 USPs of your company or even one. But in case nobody's up for the next exercise, I would just sum it up, because I think we are also coming to the end of I think we are almost in time. So social venture builds impact. So a social venture is a profit organization which is based on impact building, and its USP is it is serving someone's purpose for who is not buying. So beneficiaries are not customers, they are not buying a product, but they are the ones who are benefiting from it, and hence your hero focus has to be beneficiaries first and customers second. You have to identify your key stakeholders, because your key stakeholders will decide how the nexus of your growth is going to be. And if you keep your stakeholders who have more power and more influence in your mind, your growth trajectory of your brand is better. Of course, look out for the drivers for change, because you don't know, one small driver for change that you never thought was a change could completely turn around your business or make your business obsolete. Craft a solid venture. Be sure of your value proposition and USP, because that's going to be the building blocks of your brand. Know how to build your non-direct customers, because they are tricky. They are a little vague, but they are also the players that get you all the budget. So you should know to deal well in the sector that is more social, the more local, more government led, because most of your interactions are going to happen with such non-direct customers. Macroeconomic factors of always be abreast of what's happening in your industry, what's happening in your competitor industry. I think that's really important, because the global trends nowadays decide pretty much all decisions. Know your customers, of course, that's important because you are solving for them. watch out for your competition, and yeah, keep your marketing as simple as possible, because the more it is simple, you would have to less greenwash on the idea and it would reach more people. So yeah, thank you so much. And this is a small cartoon that I think makes sense for all the people who are in social venture. And I think this, I hope this PPT solves for it, that when you really go to the sponsors, they not only help you with some exposure, but some budget. And as much as I want to be very hopeful that, the social venture can coexist with it, we have to do a lot of work. We have to make 100 times more effort than other ventures. But I think that's the, uniqueness of it. If you love the cause that your venture is solving for, I don't think it would be a problem ever. So good luck to everybody, and thank you so much for listening to me for 1.5 hours. I would love to take some questions if you have. So I'll stop sharing my screen now, if that's okay.
While we wait for the questions, I'll just like to say, yes, thank you so much for really good insights and dive diving. I particularly like the slide on the analysis, so I probably want you to please put that up.
Sure.
If you go to that, to buttress some points around these are very many ways to which you can actually assess the strength of your company and your venture. And it's not only from a marketing perspective, this is actually a life wire of business strategy development. So you can take the screenshots of this. I'm keeping it here so that you can take the screenshots. If you can get this right, using any of the matrix or all of the matrix, then your social venture capital is definitely coming your way very soon. Because if anyone asks you around USP, you would have identified it with your strengths. If they ask you about economics, trend, you are looking at the opportunities and in some instances the threats. So please, Liliana, MD, and Tosin, please take this screenshot and have a sit down with yourself and your team members to analyze your social venture along these various lenses. I thought to amplify this because this is a very powerful slide that you have shared, Sheyasa. So are there any questions for her?
Yeah, I would love to take questions, because I feel like a teacher here, and I have been in your position so many times that I don't want to be. So please ask me questions. I would love to help you answer them.
So I also noticed that a lot of people, I don't know if there's a network challenge, like a global network challenge, but we had a lot of people coming in and leaving, and it was quite persistent throughout it. So I would take the responsibility and apologize for the low turnout, but I guess it
That's
is what
okay.
it
I
is.
would share my PPT if that helps, because I have made this PPT for people to, take back and look at it, because it is quite, knowledge intensive and it's just not pointers. So I would share it with you. I think I've shared my PPT with you. Please feel free to share it with the team.
Great. Thank you. We will share with those who have attended, because we also don't want a situation where the knowledge is just out there without context to it. So,
Yeah.
Tosin, question, do you have any question aside from the fact that this is a very great presentation? Any question, Liliana? Any question for our speaker? MD, any question from your hand? Okay, so before you go then, I would hand over to this point to Ether to please thank our faculty for today on the great presentation, really insightful class that we had today. So Ether, the floor is yours to thank Sheyasa for the amazing session we had today.
Oh, I echo everything that Tembosin said. You did an excellent job. Thank you very, very much. We appreciate you at AAPG and the Sustainable Development Committee. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was such a great pleasure. And all of this, though it seems a little theoretical, but what's surprising is none of this is, because I use all these live wires every day, and I've done this for, I think, like last 5 6 years, and I can vouch for it as a professional that you would have to come back to this every day if you're making a venture, even if you're part of some venture and you're helping startup. I hope this presentation helps you. Please feel free to mail me, hit me up on LinkedIn and connect with me. I'm so glad I could share my experiences with this team, and I'm looking forward to some fabulous work that these young participants will be doing. And yes, I mean, thank you so much for hosting me, and the great team you guys have.
Yes, yes. Thank you for imparting your knowledge. We appreciate it. I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day.
Yes, thank you, and likewise, thank you so much.
Right. Thank you. And that
Okay.
was it. So we would I think it's a good place to now ask for feedback from a few participants. The feedback link is now on the chat. I will hand over now to either Janice or Anne. Please take this over, and we would close out in some few minutes. So back to you, Anne or Janice.